Stop for a moment. Look around. Feel your breath. Realize that you are here, in this instant, in this space. And yet within your mind, there is a whirlwind that never seems to stop. Worries, doubts, fears. A constant stream of thoughts that trap you without you noticing. Why do we worry so much? Why does our mind insist on projecting us into an uncertain future, filling us with anxiety? It's as if within us lives a tireless voice, reminding us of everything that could go wrong, everything we cannot control. Worry gives us the illusion of control. We believe that if we think enough about a problem, we can avoid it or solve it before it happens. But in reality, most worries are useless. We spend mental energy on scenarios that may never happen. We wear ourselves out emotionally before anything even occurs. Carl Jung said that what we do not confront in the unconscious will manifest in our lives as fate. And this is key to understanding why we worry so much. Many of our anxieties do not come from the present, but from past wounds and deep fears we have never acknowledged. Think about this. When you were a child, there were moments when you felt helpless. Perhaps you feared that something bad would happen, that someone would abandon you, that the world was too big and you were too small. Over time, those emotions stayed within you, buried in your unconscious. And now, every time you face uncertainty, those emotions resurface disguised as worry. So, how can we escape this trap? How do we stop worrying about things that haven't happened yet? First, we must recognize that worry is not a strategy but a habit. It does not protect us. It only robs us of energy and keeps us trapped in an endless loop. Second, we must learn to bring our consciousness to the present. The mind wants to travel to the future, but the body is always in the now. If we connect with the body, if we breathe consciously, if we feel our surroundings, we can break the cycle of worry. And third, we must look within. Not just avoid anxiety, but understand it. Where does this fear come from? What is it trying to tell me? Jung spoke of integrating the shadow, confronting what we have repressed. If we understand the origin of our worry, we can take away its power. Do this exercise right now. Ask yourself, what worry occupies your mind the most at this moment? Write it down or say to yourself, I worry about. Then ask yourself, is this a real worry or just a mental habit? Most of the time, you will see that it is nothing more than an echo of the past. And here is something important to reflect on. What if today you chose to trust life a little more? If you let go, even for a moment, the need to control everything. How would that feel? If this idea resonates with you, tell me in the comments. What worries you the most lately? Let's talk about it together. Imagine walking through a dense forest. There is no light, only shadows moving among the trees. You don't know what lies ahead, and every crunch of a branch under your feet seems to announce imminent danger. You see nothing, but you feel fear. This is anxiety. A mental forest where every thought is a shadow that threatens to devour you. But here's the trick. Most of those dangers do not exist. They are illusions, reflections of old fears, stories our mind creates to prepare us for the worst. When we worry, our brain believes we are in real danger. It releases stress hormones, accelerates our pulse, and keeps us in a state of alert. The more we worry, the more we reinforce this response. It is a vicious circle. Worry generates anxiety. Anxiety makes us feel insecure, and that feeling of insecurity makes us worry even more. But where does this reaction come from? From the perspective of deep psychology, anxiety is not just a mental problem. It is a signal from the unconscious. Something within us is asking to be seen, understood, and if we do not face it, it will continue to manifest in different ways. Insomnia, irritability, obsessive thoughts. Carl Jung taught us that what we deny subjects us, but what we accept transforms us. If worry dominates us, it is because we have forgotten to look within ourselves. Think about this. How many times have you felt anxious about something that, in the end, did not happen? How many nights have you lost sleep over situations that never occurred? The mind creates storms where there are only passing clouds. But it is not enough to say, "Stop worrying." It does not work that way. The key is to break the cycle. Here is a powerful practice. Every time you find yourself trapped in worry, pause and take a deep breath. Then ask yourself, is this real or just a projection of my mind? If it is real, can I do something about it right now? If I cannot do anything at this moment, what would happen if I simply let go of this thought? Anxiety wants control, but peace comes from learning to let go. It is like swimming in a river. If you resist, you sink. If you flow with the current, you stay afloat. Here is where an interesting paradox comes in. The more you try to fight against anxiety, the stronger it becomes. Worry feeds on your resistance. If you try to eliminate it completely, it becomes even more persistent. Jung spoke of the principle of enantiodromia, the idea that everything, taken to its extreme, turns into its opposite. This means that instead of resisting worry, we could try to understand it, integrate it. Do an experiment right now. Close your eyes for a few seconds and allow the worry to be there without fighting it. Instead of saying, "I don't want to worry," try saying, "I will observe my worry with curiosity." How does it feel in your body? What emotions does it awaken? The simple act of observing without judging changes the dynamic. It separates you from the anxiety and allows you to see that you are not your worry. You are the observer behind it. Imagine someone watching a scary movie. The more they identify with the story, the more fear they feel. But if they suddenly realize they are in a movie theater, that they are only watching a projection on a screen, their reaction changes. The story is still there, but it no longer controls them. Our mind works the same way. Worry is a mental movie that we repeat to ourselves over and over. And the secret to getting out of it is not to fight against the story, but to realize that it is just a story, and there is more. Behind the worry hides an important message. The unconscious does not create anxiety without reason. Sometimes worry is a way of avoiding facing something deeper. A fear, an insecurity, a wound that we have not yet healed. This is where deep psychology invites us to look further. Instead of just calming the anxiety, we can ask ourselves, what is my worry trying to tell me? Maybe you worry about not being enough. Maybe you fear losing something important. Or perhaps there is a part of you that is still trapped in a past experience. If we look at worry from this perspective, it stops being an enemy and becomes a guide. It transforms into a signal that indicates which parts of us still need attention and understanding. Imagine walking through a dark house with a flashlight in your hand. As you advance, the light projects shadows on the walls. Some look like monsters with claws, frightening figures that seem to stalk you. But when you get closer and observe them carefully, you realize they are just furniture, common objects distorted by the light. This is how worry works. It is a shadow projected by something deeper within us. It is not the real problem, but the reflection of something we have not yet understood. From the perspective of deep psychology, Carl Jung taught us that what we repress in our unconscious does not disappear, but manifests in indirect ways. Anxiety and worry are two of those ways. They are signals that something within us is asking to be seen. Ask yourself, why do I worry so much? What lies behind this anxiety? Sometimes, worry arises because we do not trust our own ability to face life. We fear failure. We fear that things will go wrong. But where does this fear come from? Often, the root of worry lies in past experiences. Perhaps in childhood, we were taught that the world is dangerous, that we must be alert all the time. Perhaps we grew up in an environment where making mistakes was not an option, where being vulnerable meant being weak. When we are children, we absorb beliefs without questioning them. If we learn that we are only valuable when we are perfect, anxiety becomes a protection mechanism. We worry because we believe unconsciously that only by foreseeing every possible problem can we avoid failure. But here is the paradox. Worry makes us feel like we have control, when in reality, it paralyzes us. It keeps us trapped in a loop of fear, preventing us from acting, from living freely. Jung said that until the unconscious is made conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In other words, if we do not understand where our anxiety comes from, we will continue to repeat the same patterns without realizing it. Think about this. What would happen if, instead of running from worry, we dared to face it? Here is a powerful technique you can try. It is called dialogue with the shadow. It is an exercise that allows us to speak with the part of us that generates anxiety. Close your eyes for a moment and visualize your worry as a figure in front of you. It does not matter what it looks like. It could be a shadow, a scared child, a voice in your mind. Ask it, what are you trying to tell me? Why do you insist on making me worry? What are you trying to protect me from? At first, you may not get a clear answer. But if you practice this technique, you will start to notice patterns. Maybe you will discover that your worry is not the enemy, but a misunderstood protector. Maybe you will understand that anxiety has been trying to warn you about something deeper, a wound that you have not yet healed, a fear that needs to be understood. The problem is that most of us do not want to listen to our anxiety. We want to silence it, distract ourselves, ignore it. But by doing so, we only make it stronger. Imagine a small child who is scared and grabs your clothes, asking for attention. If you ignore them, they will scream louder. But if you kneel down, look them in the eyes and say, "I am here, tell me what's wrong," the child will calm down. Your anxiety works the same way. It wants to be heard. It wants you to look at it with compassion instead of fear. This does not mean that we should accept worry as a lifelong companion. It means that we must understand its origin so that it stops dominating us. Think about this. What would happen if, instead of seeing worry as a threat, we saw it as a guide? Here is an exercise you can try this week. Every time you worry, instead of fighting the thought, write on a piece of paper. What am I feeling exactly? Why is this thought so persistent? What deeper fear is it trying to reveal to me? By doing this, you start to illuminate the shadow. You start to transform worry into self-awareness. As we continue to explore, we will see how we can use this understanding to change our relationship with anxiety and live with more freedom. Worry is like a storm in our mind. Thoughts swirl out of control, dense clouds of doubt cover us, and the rain of anxiety falls without warning. But have you ever noticed that after the storm, the air feels fresher and the sky clearer? Anxiety is not the problem. It is a signal, an alert that something within us needs attention. But if we do not learn to read those signals, we will remain trapped in the noise of the storm without understanding its message. Think about this. What would happen if we used all the energy we spend worrying for something more? If we look at highly successful people, many of them have experienced anxiety at some point in their lives. But instead of letting worry paralyze them, they turned it into action. Albert Einstein used to say that his genius did not come from his intelligence, but from his obsessive curiosity. His mind never stopped questioning, anticipating problems, exploring solutions. Instead of letting his anxiety torment him, he turned it into an inexhaustible source of discovery. We can do the same. Every anxious thought is energy. But if we do not use it well, it becomes a weight that drags us down. On the other hand, if we learn to redirect it, we can turn it into movement. The key is to ask a fundamental question. Can I do something about it? If the answer is yes, then the solution is action. Doing something, no matter how small, takes us out of the worry cycle. It gives us back control. If the answer is no, then the solution is to let go. This is where the real transformation comes in. Learning to accept uncertainty. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much we plan, there will always be factors beyond our control. Jung spoke of the principle of synchronicity, the idea that events sometimes occur in ways that we cannot explain logically, as if life has its own mysterious flow. When we try to control the uncontrollable, we wear ourselves out. But when we accept that uncertainty is part of life, we find freedom. Think about the best experiences of your life. How many of them were planned down to the last detail? Probably very few. Life happens in the unexpected, in the twists of fate that we could never have foreseen. This does not mean that we should not prepare or make decisions carefully. It means that we must learn to trust our ability to adapt. Worry makes us think that if we do not have all the answers now, something terrible will happen. But the truth is that when the challenge comes, we will find a way to face it. As we have done before, write down a worry you have right now. Something that is causing you anxiety at this moment. Ask yourself, is this something I can control or change? If the answer is yes, write down a small step you can take today to do something about it. If the answer is no, write down a reason why you can trust that, whatever happens, you will find a way to face it when the time comes. This simple exercise trains us to differentiate between what we can and cannot control. And over time, it reduces the power of worry in our lives. Worry is deeply linked to our identity. Many times, we worry because we believe our worth depends on the outcome of a situation. If I fail in this project, it means I am not good enough. If I make a mistake, people will see me as a failure. If I am not successful, then I am not worthy. But this is a trap of the mind, because our value as people does not depend on a single event, nor on a single failure or success. We are much more than that. When we stop identifying our self-esteem with results, worry loses its power. We realize that we are not our mistakes or our achievements. We are beings in constant evolution, learning at every step of the way. If we can see our life as a journey in which every experience shapes and teaches us something, then worry stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. Finally, the best way to deactivate worry is to return to the present moment. Anxiety lives in the future. But life happens now. A simple trick. When you realize you are trapped in worried thoughts, stop for a moment and feel your breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Listen to the sounds around you. This breaks the cycle of anxious thinking and brings you back to the present. Because here and now, in this moment, you are fine. And the only way to live fully is by being present in the only instant that really exists. This one. Anxiety is not an enemy. It is not something we should eradicate completely. In fact, when we learn to understand it, it becomes an internal compass that guides us toward our growth. What we have explored so far has led us to a key question. If worry is an inevitable part of life, then how can we use it to our advantage? In this final part, we will see how to transform anxiety into a powerful tool for self-awareness, personal development, and a fuller life. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, that hidden part of our psyche where we store aspects of ourselves that we reject or ignore. Often anxiety is a reflection of something within our shadow that needs to come to light. We worry about the future because we do not trust our own abilities. We are tormented by the possibility of failure because deep down, we doubt our own worth. But here is the key. Anxiety is not the problem. It is the symptom of an internal conflict. Ask yourself, what part of me feels inadequate or insecure in this situation? What beliefs do I have about myself that reinforce my anxiety? If my worry were a message from my unconscious, what would it be trying to tell me? When we start to see anxiety as a message rather than an obstacle, our relationship with it changes. Instead of fighting our fears, we listen to them. And when we listen, we discover deep answers about who we are and what we need to heal. There is a big difference between thinking about a problem and acting on it. Anxiety traps us in the first option, thinking, rethinking, analyzing, imagining all possible scenarios. But it rarely leads us to the second step, acting. Here is a powerful principle. If we worry about something, we should do something about it. Even the smallest step takes us out of the worry cycle and gives us back control. Example: are you worried about a difficult conversation? Write down what you want to say. Practice out loud. Are you afraid of failing in a project? Break the work into small steps and start with the first one. Are you tormented by an important decision? Gather information, but set a time limit for deciding and then move forward. When we move, our mind changes. We stop being prisoners of fear and become agents of our own lives. But what about what we cannot control? This is where acceptance comes in. Jung said that what we resist persists. The more we try to avoid uncertainty, the more it torments us. But when we accept it, we find peace. Accepting does not mean giving up or being passive. It means understanding that there are things that are simply out of our control and that is okay. Think about the times in your life when something did not go as expected, and yet everything turned out fine. Life has a mysterious way of moving. Sometimes failures turn into new opportunities. Losses teach us valuable lessons. Difficult moments shape us into stronger versions of ourselves. When we stop fighting the inevitable and learn to flow with life, anxiety loses its power over us. One of the biggest sources of anxiety is the fear of failure. But here is something few people understand. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. Everyone who has achieved something important in life has failed many times before. The difference is that they did not let fear stop them. If we redefine failure as learning, as a necessary step in our growth, then fear loses its power. Instead of worrying about failing, we worry about growing. So do what you fear, say what you think, dare to try. And if you fail, learn, adjust, and move forward. The best way to overcome anxiety is to fill our lives with something more powerful: purpose. When we focus on something bigger than our fears, they become small in comparison. Ask yourself, what truly inspires you? How can you contribute to the world in a way that makes you feel fulfilled? How would your life be if you were completely present, without letting the fear of the future stop you? Living with intention means that instead of being dragged by worry, we direct our energy toward what really matters. After all, we are here, on this strange and beautiful rock, floating in space. Our existence is a statistical miracle, and within this brief moment in the universe, we have the opportunity to experience, learn, connect, love, and live. Do not let anxiety steal this gift from you. When you feel trapped in worry, remember this: nothing you fear now will define your life forever. Everything will pass. Everything will change. And the only thing that really matters is how you choose to live this moment. So, let go of some control. Trust yourself. Act when necessary, and accept when it is not. And above all, remember to enjoy the journey. If this video has helped you see worry in a different way, tell me in the comments which part resonated with you the most. If you want to continue exploring the fascinating psychology of the unconscious, interpersonal relationships, and the dynamics of the mind, do not miss our next video. See you on the next journey.